The wind howled across the empty plains like a wounded animal the night Walter Grady drove through the rusted gates of Blackwood Ranch. Rain slammed against the windshield of his old pickup truck while lightning cracked across the sky, revealing the massive abandoned property he had just bought for $1. $1. That was all the state wanted for the cursed land nobody else dared to touch. People in the nearby town said the ranch was rotten with bad memories. They whispered about disappearances, fires, bankruptcies, and families torn apart. They said every owner lost something precious there. Walter had already lost everything long before he arrived. And before this story begins, do me one favor. If stories about hope, second chances, and impossible miracles touch your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because tonight's story may remind you that sometimes the people who believe they have nothing left to live for are the very people chosen to save someone else. Walter turned off the engine and sat in silence. He was 53 years old, broad-shouldered but worn down by grief. His rough beard carried streaks of gray, and years of hard ranch work had left deep cracks in his hands. But the deepest cracks were the ones nobody could see. 3 years earlier, Walter had buried his wife, Helen. For nearly 25 years, they had dreamed of having children. They tried doctors, treatments, prayers, and every desperate hope imaginable. But no child ever came. The silence in their home grew heavier every year until illness took Helen away forever. After her death, Walter stopped caring about life. He sold nearly everything he owned and drifted from one ranch job to another like a ghost wandering through someone else's story. Then one afternoon, while drinking stale coffee in a roadside diner, he overheard two men talking about Blackwood Ranch. "State's auctioning it for $1, one man laughed. "You couldn't pay me to live there." Walter didn't know why, but something inside him stirred. Maybe he simply wanted a place where nobody would bother him anymore. Maybe he wanted somewhere forgotten enough to match how he felt inside. Or maybe fate had already begun moving pieces he could not yet see. Now, standing in the storm outside the old ranch house, Walter grabbed his lantern and stepped into the darkness. The property was massive but decaying. Broken fences stretched across endless acres. The barn leaned dangerously to one side. The stable doors creaked in the wind. As Walter approached the stable, he suddenly froze. A noise. Soft. Weak. Not an animal. A human voice. He lifted the lantern higher and slowly pushed open the stable door. Inside, buried beneath old blankets in a corner stall, was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 19. Her face was pale with exhaustion. Mud stained her clothes. Her blonde hair clung to her cheeks from sweat and rain. One trembling hand rested protectively over her swollen stomach. She was heavily pregnant and terrified. Walter stared in disbelief. The girl's eyes widened in fear as she grabbed a broken pitchfork nearby. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered. Walter slowly raised both hands. "I ain't gonna hurt you." Her lips trembled. "Please, don't make me leave." The words hit Walter harder than he expected. Because he recognized that kind of fear. The fear of having nowhere left to go. He set down the lantern carefully. "What's your name?" "Emma." "When's the baby due?" She swallowed nervously. "Any day now." Walter looked around the freezing stable. She had been living there. Alone. Pregnant. In secret. Something inside his chest tightened painfully. "Come inside," he said quietly. "You'll freeze out here." At first, Emma refused. Fear lived deep inside her eyes, the kind built from betrayal and pain. But eventually exhaustion defeated caution. Walter carried her few belongings into the ranch house while Emma slowly followed behind him. The house itself was barely livable. Dust coated every surface. The plumbing groaned. The electricity worked only when it wanted to. But Walter lit a fire. He cooked soup. And for the first time in years, another human being sat across from him at the dinner table. Emma ate carefully, as though expecting the kindness to disappear at any moment. Walter finally asked the question lingering in his mind. "Who's the father?" Her face immediately changed. Pain, shame, fear. "He doesn't know," she whispered. Walter nodded slowly and didn't push further. But over the following days, the truth slowly emerged piece by piece. Emma had grown up in foster homes after losing her parents as a child. At 18, she met a charming young man named Tyler who promised her love, stability, and a future together. When she became pregnant, Tyler vanished. Then things became worse. The apartment she rented threw her out after she missed payments. Shelters were overcrowded. Some places turned her away entirely. Eventually she ended up wandering from town to town until she heard rumors about the abandoned ranch where nobody visited anymore. So she hid there, waiting for the baby to come. Waiting for life to decide whether she deserved to survive. Walter listened quietly, and every night afterward, he found himself staring at the empty room upstairs that had once belonged to the children he and Helen never had. He hated how much Emma's presence awakened old dreams he had buried. One afternoon, while repairing fencing, Walter noticed Emma standing outside watching the sunset over the fields. "You know," she said softly, "this place doesn't feel cursed." Walter gave a dry laugh. "Town disagrees. Maybe people only call places cursed when they're too broken to fix them." Walter looked at her carefully. For someone so young, pain had made her wiser than most adults. Over the next several weeks, life slowly changed. Walter repaired the ranch house room by room while Emma cleaned and organized what she could. She planted wildflowers near the porch. She laughed occasionally now, and that laugh did something dangerous to Walter. It made the ranch feel alive again. For the first time since Helen died, mornings no longer felt meaningless. But peace never lasts forever. One evening, a black SUV rolled onto the property. Walter stepped outside immediately. Two men climbed out. One wore an expensive coat and carried the smug confidence of someone used to intimidating people. Emma saw him through the window and instantly turned pale. "It's him," she whispered. "Tyler. The baby's father." Walter's jaw tightened. Tyler approached casually. "Well," he smirked, "there you are." Emma stepped behind Walter instinctively. Tyler noticed. His smile faded slightly. "I came to help," he said. "I heard she was here." Walter didn't trust him for a second. "Funny," Walter said coldly. "Didn't seem interested before." Tyler's expression darkened. "You don't know the whole story, old man." Emma finally spoke, her voice shaking. "You left me." Tyler sighed dramatically. "My parents cut me off. I panicked. You disappeared for 7 months." Walter took one threatening step forward. "That girl survived winter alone carrying your child." Tyler glanced nervously at Walter's massive frame. Then his tone changed. "My family wants the baby." Silence. Emma's face lost all color. Tyler continued carefully. "They can provide a better life than this." Walter suddenly understood. This wasn't about love, it was about reputation. Tyler's wealthy family wanted control. Emma backed away in horror. "You said you never wanted the baby." Tyler avoided eye contact. "My mother changed her mind." Walter's fists clenched. "No," Emma whispered. "You don't get to come back now." Tyler's voice hardened. "You can fight me in court if you want." Then he looked directly at Walter. "And if you think hiding her on this dump protects her, you're wrong." The SUV disappeared into the dust moments later. Emma collapsed into tears. Walter stood motionless for a long time. Then quietly said something he himself didn't fully understand yet. "He's not taking that baby." Days later, labor began during another violent storm. Emma's screams echoed through the ranch house while Walter panicked harder than he ever had in his entire life. The roads flooded. No ambulance could reach them. Walter stayed beside her all night, holding her hand, boiling water, trying desperately not to show fear. At dawn, the cries of a newborn finally filled the house. A little girl, tiny, perfect. Emma sobbed as Walter carefully wrapped the baby in blankets. Then something unexpected happened. The baby stopped crying the moment Walter held her. He stared down at the child in complete silence. His eyes filled with tears. Because for one impossible moment, after decades of emptiness, he felt what fatherhood might have been like. Emma smiled weakly. "She likes you." Walter couldn't speak. Weeks passed. The ranch transformed even more. Baby clothes hung drying on lines outside. Laughter replaced silence. Hope replaced decay. But Tyler's family did not give up. Court papers arrived demanding custody discussions. Emma became terrified again. One night she admitted the truth. "I'm scared they'll win." Walter looked at the sleeping baby beside the fireplace. "No judge on earth's giving that child to people who abandoned you." "But what if they do?" Walter was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "You ever think about staying here permanently?" Emma looked surprised. "You mean, working here?" I mean living here. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Walter cleared his throat awkwardly. This ranch is too big for one stubborn old man anyway. Emma cried harder than before. Because nobody had ever truly offered her a home. Not temporary shelter. Not charity. A home. Months later, the custody hearing arrived. Tyler's wealthy parents hired expensive lawyers. They painted Emma as unstable and unfit. But they underestimated one thing. Walter. When the judge asked why he had taken Emma in, Walter stood slowly. His rough hands trembled slightly. My wife and I spent 25 years praying for children we never got to have, he said quietly. After she died, I figured life was finished with me. The courtroom fell silent. Then one night I found a scared girl hiding in my stable trying to protect her baby from a world that failed her. Walter looked toward Emma. She didn't need money. She needed someone to stay. Even the judge appeared emotional. Walter continued, I can't tell the court what makes someone family. But I know it ain't blood alone. Family's the people who show up when everyone else leaves. Tyler lowered his eyes. Weeks later, the ruling came. Emma retained full custody. Tyler was ordered child support but received only limited supervised visitation. Outside the courthouse, Emma broke down crying with relief. Walter simply smiled quietly. When they returned home to Blackwood Ranch, something felt different. It no longer looked abandoned. Neighbors slowly began helping repair fences and buildings. The town that once mocked the cursed ranch started changing its mind. Because people are drawn to places where love survives hardship. One evening nearly a year later, Walter sat on the porch holding little Grace while Emma rocked gently beside him. The sunset painted the fields gold. Emma smiled softly. You know what's funny? What? You bought this ranch for $1. Walter chuckled. Worst financial decision of my life. Emma laughed. Then her eyes filled with emotion. No, she whispered. I think it saved all of us. Walter looked down at Grace sleeping peacefully against his chest. And for the first time in decades, the emptiness inside him was gone. Not because life had given him what he originally wanted, but because sometimes miracles arrive disguised as broken people needing shelter from the storm. And sometimes the family we spend our whole lives searching for walks quietly into our lives when we least expect it. So if you're listening tonight while carrying pain, loneliness, regret, or the feeling that life forgot about you, remember this. A closed chapter does not mean the story is over. Sometimes the darkest roads lead to the people who heal us. And sometimes a $1 ranch becomes the most valuable thing a man could ever own.